The disappearance of a young woman during her morning jog captured international attention and quickly turned into Salt Lake City's most notable missing person case. The unfolding story revealed a web of lies and secrets that painted a dark picture of her life. On July 19, 2004, 28-year-old Mark Hacking awoke to find that his wife, Lori Soares Hacking, had already left for her job at Wells Fargo, where she worked as a stockbroker's assistant. Lori had planned to rise early at around 5 a.m. to go for a run in the picturesque Memory Grove area of Salt Lake City, which was a common routine for her. The plan was for her to return home, prepare for the day, and for Mark to drive her to work by 7 a.m. However, when Mark woke up at 8 a.m. after oversleeping, he assumed that Lori had returned from her run and had driven herself to work without waking him. His assumption was seemingly corroborated when he noticed that her car was missing from their driveway. Not overly concerned at first, Mark continued with his morning routine. It wasn't until around 10 a.m. when he made a call to her workplace that he learned Lori had never arrived at work. This revelation alarmed him further as he realized that the clothes Lori had planned to wear to work were still at home, indicating that she hadn't returned from her run. While speaking to one of Lori's co-workers on the phone, Mark discovered the laid-out clothes, which led to his growing panic, prompting an immediate call to 911 to report her missing. Upon reaching out to emergency services just after 10 a.m., Mark was informed by the desk sergeant that he would need to wait 24 hours before officially reporting Lori as a missing person. Frustrated and desperate for answers, he decided to take matters into his own hands. He drove to Memory Grove Park, where he found Lori's car still parked in the location she typically used when she went for her runs, but there was no sign of her in the vicinity, and the vehicle looked completely undisturbed. Shortly after this disappointing find, several of Lori's co-workers arrived to assist in the search. They had also taken the initiative to alert the police about her disappearance. Mark was joined by both his and Lori's family members as they all combed the area that Lori regularly ran. Family members mentioned that Lori often took the same route, typically sticking to the main road when she was running alone for safety, only diverting off the path when accompanied by someone else. When police arrived at the scene, they interviewed Mark, who appeared visibly distressed and struggled to maintain his composure. Despite his emotional state, he recounted the series of events leading up to Lori's disappearance. Mark claimed to have run along his wife's usual route in search of her, explaining the wet condition of his shoes, as he had crossed a creek during his search. During the interview, Mark became increasingly overwhelmed and ultimately fell back against the passenger side of Lori's car, showing just how emotionally affected he was by the situation. The community was still reeling from the recent kidnapping incident involving 14-year-old Elizabeth Smart 2 years earlier in 2002. Given this context, law enforcement acted quickly, launching an extensive investigation to locate Lori Hacking. The urgency of the search reflected the memories of past cases, emphasizing the need for a swift response in hopes of finding her safe and sound. The police took Mark's account seriously, initiating a thorough examination of the situation as concerns grew about the nature of Lori's sudden disappearance. Despite Mark Hacking's initial belief that he needed to wait 24 hours to report his wife Lori missing, emergency services sprang into action, deploying K-9 units and helicopters to assist in the search effort. However, as the hours passed, these intensive searches yielded no results. During this time, members of the community began to come forward, sharing their unsettling experiences at Memory Grove, recounting eerily suspicious encounters with unfamiliar men in the area. This prompted investigators to develop a troubling theory that Lori may have been abducted while out for her morning run, a scenario reminiscent of the abduction of Elizabeth Smart. Lori's disappearance was particularly heartbreaking given that she and Mark were on the cusp of realizing their dreams. The couple, who had been high school sweethearts, had celebrated 5 years of marriage. Mark had just completed his master's degree in psychology from the University of Utah, and they were excitedly planning their move to North Carolina, where Mark had been accepted to medical school at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, aiming to specialize in oncology. Following in the footsteps of his father, a pediatrician, and an older brother, Mark's future looked bright. Lori, too, had put her own dreams on hold. She had resigned from her job, a position she cherished, and deferred her plans for an MBA until Mark completed his medical education. Notably, most of their apartment had been packed in preparation for their upcoming move, and just 3 days prior to Lori's disappearance, the couple held a farewell gathering at a mountain cabin owned by Lori's boss. Adding to the joyous news, Lori was about 5 weeks pregnant, a revelation that further deepened the tragedy of her vanishing. Friends and family noted her enthusiasm for both the impending move and the arrival of their baby. By the afternoon, flyers were circulated throughout the city, hoping that someone might provide information regarding Lori's whereabouts. However, complications arose when a neighbor of the hacking couple was interviewed. This neighbor stated that Laura's car remained parked outside their apartment building at 7 a.m. when she left her home, and when she returned at 8:30 a.m., the vehicle was still there. These conflicting witness statements added layers of complexity to the investigation. If Lori had indeed been out for her run, how could her car be present during the time she should have been leaving? To address this mystery, investigators turned to Mark for clarification, but he was adamant that Lori's car had been missing when he woke up. As is often the case in missing person investigations, particularly those involving spouses, Mark became the focus of scrutiny. However, it was challenging to identify a motive for him to be involved in Lori's disappearance. Friends and co-workers were interviewed as well, and many asserted that they had noticed no significant change in Lori's behavior leading up to her vanishing. One co-worker stated that Lori seemed exceptionally cheerful, especially as Mark had sent her flowers while she was at work. Lori's mother echoed this sentiment, affirming that their relationship appeared solid, with Lori affectionately referring to Mark as "my big old teddy bear." Everyone who knew them believed they were a happy couple in love. Nevertheless, there was an oddity in Mark's actions that morning prior to Lori's disappearance. Between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m., he had purchased a new mattress for their shared bedroom, presumably in anticipation of their move. While this act raised some eyebrows, it wasn't immediately alarming to investigators. Later that same day, Mark was brought in for a brief interview with law enforcement. On the ride to the police station, he made a comment that struck the officers as peculiar. "Lori is going to be so pissed at me." When pressed about what he meant, Mark elaborated that if they were to find her, she would be upset because he hadn't gone running with her that morning. This statement, along with the circumstances surrounding Lori's disappearance, only served to deepen the investigation, leaving authorities to navigate through the complex emotions and clues in search of the truth. At the police station, Mark recounted his story to an officer regarding his wife's mysterious disappearance. He began by noting that Lori had risen at 5 in the morning without waking him. When he finally woke up around 8, he discovered she was no longer home, which he initially attributed to her leaving for work without disturbing his sleep. After getting out of bed, Mark engaged in some activities, including playing on his Nintendo. The couple had been in search of a new mattress, and Mark left home around 9 to pick one up. By 10, he was at home placing the new mattress on their bed and putting on the sheets when he received a call on Lori's work phone. The person on the other end asked whether Lori was okay. When Mark realized she hadn't arrived at work, he began searching for her at her usual running spot, the local market. Mark agreed to undergo a computer voice stress analysis, a controversial method used to detect deception by measuring the frequency and stress in a person's voice. An officer explained that while CVSA isn't admissible in court, it could help confirm the information already collected. Mark felt uneasy about this, suspecting that refusing the test might make him appear guilty. The officer reassured him that participation was completely voluntary, but Mark ultimately declined. The police, intrigued by Mark's odd behavior, decided to investigate their apartment. When officers checked a dumpster nearby, Mark was with his brother, who asked why the police were there. Mark responded, stating, "Apparently they are nervous that I bought a new mattress." Despite their suspicions, officers found nothing amiss in the dumpster as the search for Lori continued. Later, around 2 a.m. on July 20th, another call came in regarding a disturbance at a hotel not far from Mark and Lori's apartment. Upon their arrival, officers found a naked Mark, aside from sandals, running through the hotel. His brother Scott soon joined him, where he discovered a peculiar message on Mark's PDA that read, "To everyone from Mark, this is justice. I am so sorry." Following this event, Mark's family decided to admit him to a psychiatric facility for evaluation. FBI profiler Candace DeLong commented that Mark's choice to keep his sandals on during the incident suggests he may not have been genuinely psychotic. Speculation emerged that Mark could have been attempting to feign insanity to secure hospitalization, a strategy he might have considered beneficial for concealing his secrets. Mark had been living a double life unbeknownst to his family, who viewed him as diligent and studious. He often left textbooks spread throughout their home, even soliciting Lori's mother for help in writing term papers, all in preparation for a move to North Carolina where he claimed he would attend medical school. However, Mark had never been accepted or even applied to any medical school. His family was shocked to learn that he had traveled under the pretense of attending fake interviews while his academic background was far less impressive than he claimed. He had actually dropped out of school and never graduated from the University of Utah. The scattered books and term papers were part of Mark's intricate web of deceit. He misled friends and family into believing he was attending classes when, in reality, he often loitered in a neighborhood store, indulging in soda, hot dogs, and cigarettes, something he kept secret from Lori, who was a member of the Church of Latter-day Saints, where smoking was frowned upon. In addition to fabricating his educational background, Mark told Lori's mother that he worked at the Neuropsychiatric Institute at the University of Utah, suggesting he was involved in conducting therapy sessions. In truth, he was a licensed healthcare assistant at the hospital and merely led group activities, not therapy. Mark even sported a name tag that read Franz, a nickname taken from a Saturday Night Live sketch about narcissistic bodybuilders. Mark's family, who believed he was thriving with Lori, were in disbelief over the revelations regarding his true life. His father spoke publicly during the ongoing media coverage, expressing their shock, stating they had been blindsided by Mark's deception. Speculation emerged that Mark's extensive lies stemmed from pressure to meet his family's expectations, as his father and one brother were doctors, and another brother was an electrical engineer. Mark explained that he only intended to mislead people about his education, rationalizing it as a harmless little lie that spiraled out of control, while adamantly denying any knowledge about Lori's disappearance. Lori's family, initially supportive of Mark during the ongoing search for her, began to question his version of events as new information surfaced. The last confirmed sighting of Lori was at a convenience store on the evening of Sunday, July 18, just before she disappeared. Surveillance footage showed her and Mark together, and they appeared to be well. However, Mark was later seen on camera at 1 a.m. purchasing cigarettes, but notably, there was no sign of Lori during this encounter. Mark explained that she had simply gone to bed, insisting there was nothing suspicious about it. Nevertheless, investigators had an uneasy feeling about the situation, especially with the recent purchase of a mattress raising red flags. As the investigation unfolded, officers went to the church that Mark attended and rummaged through the church's dumpster, where they discovered an old, used mattress. Curiously, the top portion of the mattress had been cut off and was missing. Mark offered another explanation but struggled to justify why he chose to use the church's dumpster instead of the one at their apartment for disposing of the old mattress. He claimed that the mattress had been discarded due to Lori having a heavy menstrual cycle that had stained it. However, this excuse failed to convince the investigators, who found gaps in Mark's timeline regarding Lori's disappearance. Investigators discovered that Lori's car received a thorough inspection, revealing that the seat and mirrors were adjusted for someone much taller than her petite frame of 5'3". This suggested that Lori likely wasn't the last person to drive the vehicle. Even more concerning, blood was found in the back seat, described as a transfer stain, indicating that wet blood had come into contact with another surface. With Mark's permission, a detailed search of their apartment was conducted. Inside, officers found Lori's purse, keys, and wallet, further supporting the theory that she had never left for her morning run. Searching the bedroom, investigators noted blood stains on the headboard and the nightstand. Upon further investigation, one officer opened a drawer in the nightstand and discovered a sheathed knife. Mark, who was present during the search, chuckled nervously and claimed the knife had been a keepsake from his time as a scout. However, the officer spotted what appeared to be a bloodstain on the blade along with a fingerprint. This led the police to seek a warrant for a more extensive search of the apartment, which further solidified Mark's status as a suspect in Laura's disappearance. Unbeknownst to anyone, even more disturbing truths about Mark were yet to be revealed. On July 24, just 5 days after Lori went missing, Mark's father and brothers confronted him about her disappearance. Following this, Lori's relatives publicly announced that the search for her would be paused due to new developments surrounding Mark. It is unclear why Mark chose this moment to confess, but sensing that his prior lies were unraveling, he admitted to an argument between them the night of July 18. Lori had confronted Mark about his deceptive lifestyle, which had strained their relationship, especially with the impending move they had planned. Colleagues of Lori's reported that she had been left in distress on July 16, 3 days before her disappearance, after discovering that Mark was not enrolled at the University of North Carolina, where they intended to relocate. A university administrator informed Lori that there was no record of Mark as a student, confirming her fears after she left work early because of the upsetting news. Remarkably, Mark had convinced her that the whole situation was an administrative error, leading her to believe everything had been resolved. Unfortunately, on the morning of July 19, after Lori left a voicemail for the administrator seeking clarity, expressing her need for reassurance, her concerns went unheard. She mentioned in the message her lack of distrust toward Mark but emphasized her desire for personal peace of mind. Lori had rational reasons for her skepticism, having caught Mark in lies previously, including his false claims about enrolling in college. As the investigation continued, 2 neighbors living near the couple came forward, one reporting loud screams coming from their apartment around midnight on July 18 and another hearing a male voice shout, "It's all over." Mark's explanation for that night was that Lori went to bed while he spent time playing video games. However, he later claimed that he retrieved a .22 rifle from their packed belongings and shot Lori in the head as she slept, depicting a narrative of cold, calculated violence. Mark disposed of Lori's body, the murder weapon, and the bloody mattress by throwing them away in separate dumpsters after being spotted on convenience store surveillance footage at 1:30 a.m. Without Lori, he could have been getting rid of evidence or preparing to commit the crime. In the footage, Mark is seen examining his fingernails, hands, and watch, possibly looking for bloodstains. The next day, he bought a new mattress, hoping to cover his tracks. Lori's disappearance appeared to be staged, and Mark's actions and behavior suggested he had narcissistic personality disorder. Individuals with this disorder often present as charming but become defensive when confronted. They exhibit traits such as grandiosity, a need for admiration, and a lack of empathy. The shocking nature of Laura's death was compounded by the question of why Mark killed her. Although her family believed Lori would have forgiven him, a typewritten note found in the couple's spare bedroom suggested she was threatening to leave him if he didn't change. Forensic psychologist Dr. Kathy Yates commented on Mark's possible motives, stating that he may have felt entitled to more due to his family member's success, leading to a sense of grandeur. Mark was arrested on August 2, 2004, on suspicion of aggravated murder. Despite his confession, Lori's body remained missing, with months of searching the Salt Lake City landfill yielding no results until a highly decomposed body was eventually discovered on October 1, 3 months after she had gone missing. Mark Hacking was sentenced to 6 years to life in prison, however it was later decided that he wouldn't be eligible for parole until 2035. That was the heartbreaking case of Lori Hacking.